From the beginning, our relationship followed a predictable pattern. Amy and I connected during a work event, bonding over our shared experiences with life, marriage, and navigating blended families. When we tied the knot, it felt like everything clicked into place. We both had children from previous marriages, so blending our families required some effort, but we made it work, or so I believed. As time passed, we settled into a routine of raising the kids and focusing on our jobs. Life wasn't without its challenges, but we always made time to catch up over dinner. Even after the kids moved out, we maintained a life centered around shared duties, vacations, and supporting each other through tough times. Everything seemed fine until that night when Amy revealed her secret. It was a typical evening, just the two of us having dinner. I had cooked stir-fries since she was late coming back from a school event, which was unusual for her. We always had dinner together to stay connected. As I refilled my coffee, I realized I hadn't fully registered what Amy had just said. She was staring at me, clearly waiting for a response. What I asked, confused. I don't understand. I'd been seeing Cody, she said quickly, the new gym teacher at school, Cody Bakerfield. You've met him? Met him. I know who Cody is, I replied, feeling a growing unease. So, you're seeing him? What do you mean by that? Amy sighed. We became friends. I've been having lunch with him, and after school we've gone out sometimes. Gone out, I asked, bewildered. Are you having an affair? Yes, she admitted, her eyes watching me closely. I stared in disbelief. What? You're really having an affair? Yes, she repeated, nodding solemnly. Cliff, I'm telling you this because I love and respect you. I always have. Respect me? Love me, I gasped. It's true, she insisted. You've always been my number one. Marrying you was the best decision I ever made. I love you so much, and I couldn't keep seeing him without telling you. I stared at her, hoping this was some kind of sick joke. Amy loved me as much as I loved her. She couldn't really be having an affair. But she didn't retract her words. I was utterly lost. I don't even know what to say. Amy, I'm so confused. Don't feel bad, Cliff, she said gently. Yes, I've been seeing Cody, but he's just a friend. I don't love him, and it hasn't changed anything between us. I clenched my jaw, still in shock. How can you say you love me? I do love you, she insisted. We have a great marriage, and I'll always cherish that, but I need other male friends too. I've never had a problem with your male friends, I replied. I know, and I appreciate that, she said, but Cody's different. He's younger, and sometimes he makes me feel like a teenager again. Stop, I snapped, my patience gone. I don't want to hear any more details about your affair. Spare me, Amy. Seeing my anger, Amy softened her tone. I'm sorry, honey. I just wanted to be honest with you. Yes, I've been seeing Cody, but no one knows, and we've been careful. And that's supposed to make me feel better. I know it doesn't, she said quietly. I just want you to understand. Cliff Cody will never replace you. He's just a fun distraction. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I couldn't hide it anymore. See thing, I repeated her words in disbelief. A fun distraction. Something I'll never miss. You selfish, deceitful, I trailed off, my face burning with rage. How could you? She let me vent, nodding slightly. I guess I deserve that. I couldn't take it any longer. I stood up so quickly that my chair toppled over, and without a word, I stormed out of the room. Where are you going? Cliff, Amy called after me. Don't leave, please. I need to think, I shot back. Give me a minute. I walked out the back door, leaving her behind, and stormed onto the deck, furious, trying to catch my breath. She's cheating on me. The sheer disrespect made my blood boil. I pounded the railing, trying to calm down. I've always prided myself on staying level-headed, even in stressful situations, especially in my job as an accountant, but this was personal. My wife of over 2 decades was seeing a younger guy from work. I had even met him at a school event. Amy had introduced Cody as a casual friend, and I had foolishly trusted her. Now, I knew the truth. My mind raced with everything she'd said. I took deep breaths, knowing that storming back in and yelling wouldn't help. I needed to stay calm and figure out how to handle this. Yelling would only make her defensive, and that wouldn't get me the answers I needed. I needed more information to fully understand what was going on. After about 10 minutes, I felt my pulse return to normal, and I walked back inside to face Amy. She was nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup. As I sat down, she glanced up at me, but I raised my hand to stop her from speaking. Let's restart this, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm in shock, Amy. I never saw this coming. You don't have to be, Cliff, she responded, her voice soft. I raised my hand again. Wait, what's your plan here? Do you expect me to just forgive and forget? You've been seeing someone behind my back, and I'm supposed to just move on like nothing happened. Amy shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Well, not exactly. I knew you'd be upset, but I didn't want to keep you in the dark anymore. I muttered under my breath. Jesus, then I asked, so what did that smooth talker say when you told him you were going to tell me? He thought it was for the best, she replied hesitantly. That's what he said. Not exactly, Amy clarified. Cody's not a bad guy. Cliff, he feels awful about sneaking around. We both do. Really? You both feel bad about it? Yes, neither of us wants to ruin our marriage, she said, her eyes pleading with me to understand. I was about to tell her to end the affair, but then she sighed, her expression hardening with resolve. This is tough, but now that you know, I want to keep seeing him, not too often, just occasionally, and only after school hours. Her audacity left me speechless. I could only manage a sarcastic, "Oh, of course." We sat in silence, the tension between us thick, until she finally spoke again, looking deeply pained. "I'm so sorry, honey. I know this is hard, but he's a nice guy. We have fun together, and I like him, but it won't affect us." "You've got to be joking," I said in disbelief. "No, I'm serious. It hasn't changed anything between us, and it won't in the future. He's been a good friend to me, and honestly, I think he's been good for our marriage too." "Really? You're out of your mind," I shot back. "Cliff, think about it logically," she responded calmly. "Remember how tense things were last year? You even pointed out that I was being difficult." Well, I was. Our marriage had hit a rough patch, and when I started seeing him, things improved. "Oh, so he's a therapist now," I retorted with sarcasm. She ignored my sarcasm and continued, "Cody helped me change my outlook. I know you've noticed the difference. We're more than just friends, but I don't see him that often, only when you're busy. I love you, Cliff. I want to grow old with you. You know that." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you're not ending the affair. You expect me to accept this?" "It will end eventually," she reassured me. "He's younger, and we have different interests. Our feelings will fade with time, just not yet." "You're crazy," I said, unable to hide my disbelief. "Please, Cliff," she said softly. "Nothing between us will change. I'm still the same loving wife I've always been. We'll keep our life together like normal. You haven't noticed anything different, have you?" I hated to admit it, but she was right. I hadn't suspected a thing. When Amy and I first started dating, we were very active, but over the years, as the kids got older, things slowed down. Even after they went off to college, we never returned to our previous level of intimacy. I hadn't seen it as a problem, assuming most couples our age weren't as active. But now, knowing what I did, I realized Amy was right. We had gotten back on track. I couldn't deny that I was happier with how often we were being intimate, almost like when the kids were young. When she asked if I had noticed a difference while she was seeing Cody, I stayed silent. The truth was, I hadn't noticed at all. "Of course not," she answered for me confidently. "Even while seeing Cody, I've been here for you. We have a great intimate life for our age, and I enjoy it just as much as you do. Cody is just a small part of my life, nothing more." "We've had a steady 20-year marriage, and you want to keep it going?" I asked, still in disbelief. "Of course I love you," she replied. "But how can I stay married to a cheating woman?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. Her expression hardened. "I'm not just some cheater," she said sharply. "This is the first time I've ever done this, and I've never been with someone I didn't care about." "So you have feelings for him?" I asked, outraged. "How do I know you're not just waiting to leave me for him?" "It's not like that, Cliff," she insisted. "You're my husband, and I love you. I'm never going to leave you. I just need some time with Cody. Not all the time and not forever, just until this urge passes. It won't affect us, just like it hasn't so far." I sat there, stunned, with my mind flooded by thoughts of what she had been doing with him. She kept talking, trying to rationalize her affair. "It's better for us in the long run. Cliff, I've been more relaxed, more free in the bedroom. You've noticed, haven't you? I haven't turned you down, and I've let you do things you've wanted for years. Being with Cody has helped me express myself fully. No more inhibitions. You must have felt the difference." She was right again, and it infuriated me. Our sex life used to be pretty simple, nothing crazy, but still fulfilling. Amy was always a generous lover, and we both enjoyed it. But over the last few months, she'd become incredibly passionate. I had thought it was because the kids had moved out, or maybe hormonal changes as she aged. Now I realized it was because of her affair with that younger man. It was heartbreaking. I had always felt lucky to have her, Amy, a sexy divorcee 4 years older than me, with 2 kids. When we met, I fell for her immediately. I was happy to marry her and raise her kids like they were my own. Her first husband was a deadbeat who abandoned them, and I stepped in as their only father figure. After 2 decades of what I thought was a happy marriage, she dropped this bombshell on me. "Say something, Cliff," she urged, watching me intently. "I know you're upset, but I don't want you to feel hurt. Let me help make this easier. You're still my number one." She stood up, smiling seductively, and moved toward me. "I'm here for you, baby. Tell me what you need." When she tried to sit on my lap, I pushed her away. She looked hurt but didn't push it. I stood up abruptly and left the room. As I stormed out, she barely had time to say wait before I was out the door and into my car, driving without a destination in mind. I needed space before I did something rash. I considered heading to a bar to drink away my anger. I found one nearby, parked, and ordered a beer, trying to clear my head. Later, I drove home with a plan in mind. When I walked in, Amy was on her phone. She looked startled and quickly whispered, "I have to go. He's back." By the tense look on her face, I suspected she was talking to Cody. It stung, but I kept my composure. I had to follow the bartender's advice, get all the details before deciding what to do next. I sat back down at the kitchen table, the cold coffee cup still in front of me. Amy looked serious. "Cliff," she began, but I interrupted her. "Hold on. I need to know how this affair started. Maybe it'll help me understand. So how long, Amy? How long have you been breaking our vows?" She sighed. "Not long. We've been friends for a while, but it only turned physical a few months ago." She then explained how Cody made her feel special and helped her explore her sexuality, clearly relieved as she confessed. "So what now?" I asked. "You've been lying and cheating for months. How am I supposed to feel? You've been with a guy barely older than our kids, and I had no clue. You expect me to applaud your secrecy?" "No, Cliff," she said, reaching for my hand. I tensed but didn't pull away. "I'm ashamed of deceiving you. I hated lying to you, but we were careful. I didn't want you to find out. Cody never pressured me into anything. He was fine with only seeing me once in a while and didn't want to mess up our marriage." "Well, that sure changed," I said bitterly. Amy squeezed my hand. "Regardless of everything, I still love you. Cody's a good person, but he could never take your place. I told him from the beginning that we'd only be friends with benefits, and he agreed. We were careful, even having lunch with other co-workers to keep anyone from getting suspicious. No one ever knew." "I'm sure you were a clever cheater," I snapped. Amy nodded sadly. "On the outside, I looked like the perfect wife with a good job and friends, but on the inside, I was living a lie. I've always thought of myself as honest, but this affair made me despise myself. Our marriage is everything to me, and Cody was only temporary. My feelings for him are nothing compared to what I feel for you. The deception made me lose who I am." "The answer is simple. Stop cheating," I said. "Yes, but I'm not sure I can do that right now," she admitted. "I'd like to think I could just cut things off with Cody and everything would return to normal, but I don't believe it will." "Why?" I asked, growing more frustrated. "We've built a good life, raised 2 kids, and now we finally have time for each other. If you love me like you say, letting him go should be easy." She exhaled sharply and looked at me with concern. "It might have been easy to stop earlier, but now I'm not so sure. Of course, I love you, Cliff, but these past few months have opened up a new perspective for me. I've learned more about myself and my needs, and I don't know if I can just go back to how things were, even if I wanted to. I've tried to remain the same devoted wife, but being with Cody has shown me new possibilities." I pulled my hand away, struggling to keep my temper in check. "New possibilities? You mean you can't stop sleeping with him, right? I was good enough to marry and help raise your kids. But now some younger guy comes along, and suddenly I'm not enough." "That's not it at all," she quickly responded. "You've always been the best husband and father I could have wished for. But after so many years of marriage, I've changed. We've both changed. It's natural. It doesn't make us bad people. People evolve." I glared at her, speechless. She continued, her voice softer now. "Cliff, I don't want to hurt you. It may not seem like it, but that's the truth. We'll stay together, and nothing between us will change. I'll make sure of it. I love our life, our marriage, our kids. But I also enjoy the connection I have with Cody. He makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. I hope you can understand and love me enough to let me have this." "You're a witch," I muttered under my breath. If she heard, she didn't acknowledge it. "It's not a bad thing. Cliff, I'm always here for you. I just want things to stay like this for a little while longer, not forever. Just until I'm ready to end things with Cody, then I'll be yours completely again. I'm being truthful because I don't want any more secrets between us. If you let me do this, I promise I'll make it up to you. I'll always be a good wife, and no one will ever know. Just give me this, and I'll make sure you're rewarded for the rest of our lives." This conversation was spiraling out of control. At the start of the night, I had felt great about our marriage. Now, within minutes, I had gone from being a happy husband to a heartbroken one. My wife had a lover, someone younger, and undoubtedly more exciting than me. It took me a while to gather my thoughts. This was a lot to process. I thought I could reason with her and convince her to end the affair, but it was obvious she had no intention of stopping. She just wanted my permission to continue exploring her feelings. This was classic cheater's behavior. "You've been lying for months, and you're so good at it that I never even suspected a thing. Now you admit to all the deceit and cheating, promising to stay my wife. But how can I ever trust you again? You've lied to me, our kids, our friends, everyone. What's to stop you from changing your mind again, whether it's about Cody or some other guy in the future?" Amy sighed, frustrated, because she knew I was right. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes, clearly wanting to argue, but couldn't. "I'd never do that again, and deep down, you know it," she finally said. "You've got some nerve," I said bitterly, throwing your affair in my face, acting so entitled. "Why shouldn't I just leave you? I don't want a cheating wife. I should divorce you and be done with it." I expected my words to sting, but Amy's expression softened. She looked at me with surprising compassion and spoke with a new firmness. I know this is difficult right now, but divorce, that wouldn't be in your best interest, Cliff. Why not? At least I'd have my dignity. Her pitying look only made me angrier. A divorce would hurt us both, Cliff. At least I wouldn't have to deal with your affair anymore, I shot back. That's true, she said calmly. But I don't think you'd be happy with a divorce. Neither of us would. Her eyes locked onto mine. We live in a no-fault state. I'd get half of everything, the house, the savings, retirement, and since you adopted Martha and Robbie, you'd be responsible for helping with their college expenses. Plus there's alimony. I don't make much as a teacher, so you'd have to support me. It could add up to a lot. I realized she and Cody had probably thought this through. So you'd take me to the cleaners, I asked flatly. I don't want to, she replied. I want to keep living with you and loving you just like before. But if you divorce me, you'll owe a lot. And I'll still be free to see Cody. It'd be better for us to stay married. You'd have me as your loving wife, and we could keep having great sex. No one would ever know. I'll always make sure you're my number one. Then, with a sympathetic tone, she added, I'll always be grateful for your open-mindedness about this, and I'll give you whatever you want. I just need a little more time with Cody, not much, just a little. The rest of the time, I'll focus on making you happy. I was happy before you dropped this bomb on me, I said bitterly. Now I know I'm just a fool putting up with my unfaithful wife and that idiot you work with. It's not like that, Cliff, she began, but I turned to leave. She called after me. Wait, don't go. We need to talk this through. There's nothing left to discuss, Amy, I said firmly. You've made your ultimatum. Now I have to decide if I can live with it. There's nothing to worry about, she pleaded. Nothing between us will change, I promise. I don't think about anything except how much I love you for giving me this freedom. I'll do anything to make you happy. Then end the affair right now, I said. She sighed, looked down, and whispered, I can't do that. Not yet. Not yet. Then we have nothing more to talk about. This conversation is over, I said, my voice firm. I've heard enough. You've made your feelings clear, and I know nothing I say will change that. At the same time, I'll never trust another word you say again. I'm done trying to reason with a liar and a cheater. I headed to the den and switched on the TV, not caring what was on. I was still reeling from our discussion. I considered going to a hotel, leaving without a word, as I was so angry I wanted to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. But I knew that wasn't who I was. Walking out and getting drunk wasn't my style. Maybe I was too level-headed or too dull to do something rash. I felt numb and drained. It was like I was living in a nightmare. How could she do this to me? I sat in front of the TV for another hour, though I couldn't tell you what was on. A game, maybe, but I wasn't paying attention. At some point I heard her leave the kitchen, the sliding glass door opening and closing as she stepped onto the deck. I assumed she was making a call for privacy, probably telling her boyfriend how our conversation had gone. She came back inside after a while and entered the den. Since I was sitting in the recliner, she couldn't sit beside me. Instead, she stood nearby, watching me. Are you okay, Cliff? She asked sweetly. I know this is a lot to process, honey, and I want to help you through it. I glanced at her and saw a strange smile cross her face. Do you want to talk more, or would you rather head to bed? She offered. You know I'll do anything to make you feel better. I really mean that. I was disgusted. She was offering sex to ease my pain, pity sex for her poor, betrayed husband, probably something her boyfriend suggested. The thought made me furious. I ignored her offer and went upstairs to bed, seething with anger. I briefly considered sleeping in the guest room, but decided it was her who should leave. Why should I give up my own bed? I quickly undressed and climbed under the covers. A few minutes later, Amy entered. Seeing that I was already in bed, she went into our bathroom to change. She came back out wearing a nightgown she knew I liked, and turned off the light before slipping into bed without a word, moving toward me. Knowing she'd been unfaithful, I had no desire to be intimate with her. I turned onto my side, facing away from her, hoping she'd get the message, but she edged closer, attempting to spoon me, and reached out to turn me toward her. I pushed her hand away. Want to fool around, honey, she whispered softly. Suddenly, a sickening image flashed through my mind. I pictured my slender, 51-year-old wife in Cody's bed, on her back, letting him have what used to be mine. I imagined her smiling as he took what I thought belonged to me alone. Without turning to face her, I pulled her hand off me and said, never again. But honey, I know you're upset. I just wanted to. I flipped over, glaring at her. She recoiled, startled by the anger in my eyes. Even in the darkness, I was sure she sensed my fury. Of course I'm upset, I snapped. I just found out I've been a fool for months. If you want sex so badly, go call Cody. I'm sure your young stud can take care of you. Amy looked shocked. I don't think she expected such a harsh rejection. I stared at her for a few seconds before turning back toward the wall. She didn't say another word, and didn't try to touch me again. I struggled to fall asleep, and I knew she did too. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm, having barely slept and still bitter about our conversation. Amy was still in bed, but she wasn't asleep either. I took a quick shower, and by the time I came out, she had already left the room, probably because she had to be at school earlier than I did. I'd always been an early riser, even when I didn't have to be. I used to wake up before her and sometimes make breakfast for us both. Not anymore, not after finding out she was sleeping with that idiot. I got dressed and cleaned up faster than ever. When I went downstairs, I saw her in the kitchen making breakfast, for a change. "Good morning, Cliff," she called out sweetly. "I made bacon and eggs for you, and there's toast too. Would you like some coffee, dear?" I ignored her cheerful tone and her offer. I wasn't interested in her fake kindness or anything she had to say. Without even looking her way, I walked straight out the door. "Cliff, wait, please," she shouted as I slammed the door, got into my car, and sped off down the street. At work, I tried to focus, but my thoughts kept circling back to Amy and that young guy. I couldn't concentrate at all. Amy called me several times during the day, but I didn't answer, letting every call go to voicemail. I deleted her messages without listening to them. She sent me a few texts too, some sweet, playful ones, but I barely glanced at them before deleting those as well. With her constant calls and texts, I couldn't stop thinking about them. My frustration grew, and I made several careless mistakes at work. By lunchtime, I decided to take the rest of the day off. I called a lawyer to set up a consultation. He was an older gentleman who managed to see me right away. Everything Amy had said about divorce seemed to be true. I'd be screwed both emotionally and financially. She'd walk away with a comfortable life and her new boyfriend, while I'd be left footing the bill. Since I had never cheated, I had no one to help ease the pain of losing her. I'd likely end up alone, in a small apartment, broken and bitter. If I stayed with her, things wouldn't be much better. Sure, I'd still get sex, she'd made that clear, but it would be pity sex at best, and the thought of it disgusted me. This younger man was satisfying her in ways I couldn't. At 47, there was no way I could compete with a fit, athletic 30-year-old, or however old Cody was. And if I stayed and tolerated her affair, the courts would see it as me accepting her cheating, making it even harder to claim infidelity in a divorce. To make matters worse, trying to have an affair of my own to balance things out would be a losing battle. There were plenty of men who would be eager to be with Amy, even younger guys. Cody was proof of that. At 51, Amy still looked great with her short dark hair, toned figure, and bubbly personality. Meanwhile, I was an average-looking older guy with a receding hairline and a bit of extra weight. Sure, I had a stable job and didn't look too bad for my age, but how many women would be interested in a middle-aged married man? Probably not many. The difference in our dating prospects was depressing. She was still attractive, and I was not. After a frustrating day, I decided to head to a bar for dinner. I stayed as long as I could, but I never enjoyed the bar scene, and being there by myself was dull. I wished I were at home with my wife, relaxing on the couch with a beer, instead of sitting alone at a bar with other lonely guys. By the time I got home, Amy was already in bed. It wasn't even that late, but I guess she had given up on waiting for me, not that it mattered to me. I woke up early after another restless night. At dawn, I left the house and went to Denny's for breakfast. I spent some time aimlessly driving around, window shopping, just wasting the day. When I finally returned home, I wondered whether my unfaithful wife was there or out with that young idiot. It turned out she was home. She must have heard my car because she opened the door and smiled as I approached. She leaned in to kiss me, but I turned my head, and her lips landed on my cheek. She seemed surprised as I pulled away and walked past her into the den to avoid her for a while. Later, when I came out, I saw her in the kitchen. I grabbed a beer and headed for the living room to watch TV. A few minutes later, Amy joined me with a glass of wine. "Mind if I sit with you?" she asked, sounding cheerful. I noticed she had changed into a tight tank top that showed off her arms and shoulders, and she was wearing short shorts. I could smell her spicy perfume. "Suit yourself," I said, scooting over on the couch to make room for her. She deliberately sat close to me, and as the show played, she became more affectionate. I could tell the wine was making her a little tipsy, maybe even a bit aroused, but she wasn't drunk. As she leaned in closer, I chose that moment to say, "I need to use the bathroom." Amy, I gently pushed her away, got up, and left the room. As I walked away, I caught her giving me a strange look, likely confused because I almost never turned down her advances. After finishing in the bathroom, I didn't return to the living room. Instead, I went into the kitchen. "You coming back?" she called out. "The show's good." "Not right now," I replied, purposely lingering in the kitchen. After enough time had passed, I grabbed another beer and headed straight to the den, closing the door behind me. As expected, Amy opened the door a few minutes later. "What are you up to?" she asked with a smile. "Just catching up on some work," I said without looking up. "You don't want to watch the show?" "Better not," I replied. "Oh, okay," she said, still standing there. I didn't look at her, but I could feel her frustration. She had likely hoped that after such a pleasant dinner, things might start getting better between us. A minute later, I felt her hands on my shoulders. "What are you working on?" she asked, glancing at my computer screen and pretending to be interested. I had some paperwork open for an account I was managing, a complex financial spreadsheet she wouldn't understand. "I got busy on Friday and didn't finish this," I explained. "I figured you wouldn't mind if I skipped the show." "Oh, of course not," she replied. I shivered as she started massaging my neck. She knew I enjoyed having my neck and head rubbed, and she made the massage as suggestive as possible. I could smell the alcohol on her breath when she leaned down and kissed the top of my head affectionately. I ignored her attempts to get my attention, and it took her about 10 more minutes to realize I wasn't interested. Finally, she gave up and went back to the living room. "Could you shut the door, please?" I called after her. "Okay," she responded, pulling the door closed. I sighed in relief. Despite everything, Amy still knew how to turn me on, even after all these years. She knew exactly what to do to get a reaction from me, and it was working. But I was determined not to give in to her charm. I had no intention of sharing her attention with someone else. It took me 3 hours to finish my work. When I finally went upstairs to bed, I found her already asleep, wearing a revealing nightgown with matching underwear. It was clear she had planned to seduce me, but the wine must have tired her out, and she had fallen asleep. Sunday morning, I woke up before Amy and avoided her the entire day, just like the day before. On Monday, her car wouldn't start, so I had to drive her to school. She asked if I could pick her up afterward. Throughout the day, I received several calls from her school, and I assumed she was calling to tell me she'd arranged for a ride home, probably with her boyfriend. I ignored the calls, determined not to let that happen. I left work early and arrived at her school before her last class ended. I waited as the students filed out. When I walked into the classroom, Amy looked surprised and not particularly pleased. "Hey, honey, ready to go home?" I asked, trying to sound upbeat. She gave me a sharp look. "I've been calling you all day. Cliff, why didn't you answer?" "Sorry, I was busy," I replied, sounding indifferent. "I wanted to let you know I'd already arranged a ride home." "Oh, really? Well, it doesn't matter, I'm here now. So let's go," I said, brushing off her irritation. At that moment, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair walked into the room, striding toward my wife with a confident air, like he expected her to greet him. I recognized him instantly, her boyfriend Cody. I had seen him before, but never paid much attention. Up close, he looked even younger than I remembered, more like a frat boy than a teacher. He was dressed in sneakers, shorts, and a t-shirt that showed off his muscular arms and legs. He was an idiot, but I could see why Amy was attracted to him. Amy's eyes widened when she saw him, and Cody looked confused. "Oh, Cody," she stammered. I was just telling Cliff that I interrupted, finishing her sentence. "She already has a ride home." I kept my cool, as I had expected Cody to show up. He seemed surprised to see me but smiled smugly when he realized who I was. "Oh, hi," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Cody Bakerfield." I ignored the gesture and replied coolly, "Yeah, I know who you are." Trying to ease the tension, Amy nervously added, "Cody, this is Cliff, my husband. You've met him before." Cody's confused look faded as he remembered me. "Oh, right. Cliff, I remember. Nice to see you again." "I'm sure it is," I responded coldly. "We met at Parents' Night a few months ago. Amy speaks highly of you." "Not highly enough, I guess," I added, throwing a sharp look at Amy, who seemed to be holding her breath. "Amy, let's go," I said, wrinkling my nose like something smelled bad. As Amy began gathering her things, Cody turned to me. "Excuse me, Mr. Wilson, can I call you Cliff?" I scowled, ignoring his question. "What do you want?" "Just a moment of your time. Cliff, I know there's tension between us, and I get that, but it doesn't have to be this way. Amy's told you about our friendship." So I asked flatly, "I just want you to know that I don't have any ill will toward you. I respect the strong, loving relationship you have with your wife." "Is that why you're screwing her?" I asked bluntly. Amy gasped in shock from across the room. Cody nodded sympathetically. "Yes, it's true. Amy and I are close friends, and we've expressed that friendship physically, but that doesn't mean we don't respect you or your place in her life. Neither of us wants to hurt your marriage or your family. We're just friends, nothing more. She's always said she loves only you." I thought to myself, this guy's a smooth-talking fool. Cody kept smiling as he continued. "I hope you don't resent my friendship with Amy. She's had a positive impact on everyone around her, including me. Once things started escalating between us, we both knew we should have come to you before anything got serious." "That was entirely my mistake," Cody said. "She acted appropriately, and I took things further than I should have." "So you admit you seduced her?" I asked bitterly. "In a way, yes," Cody replied. "She's an incredible woman, and I got a little carried away. My lack of self-control made me act unprofessionally, but believe me, I never intended to hurt you. In fact, I'm grateful you let her work here. She's a great role model for the students. Her friendship has meant a lot to me, and I'll always value that." What a load of nonsense. I couldn't even respond. I glanced from this fool to my wife, who was staring at him with rapt attention. Her eyes sparkled as though she were impressed by his so-called respectful attitude. "So, if I asked you to stop sleeping with her, what would you say?" I asked. He shrugged. "I understand your concerns. I'd probably feel the same way in your shoes. But as for ending our friendship, that decision would be hers. Amy is smart and passionate. If she doesn't want to see me anymore, I'll respect that. But if she does, I'm not sure I could say no to her." I couldn't bring myself to hate him, no matter how much I wanted to. I appreciated his honesty, but that didn't change my feelings of disdain. No matter how reasonable he sounded, the bottom line was that unless I physically removed him from the situation, he would continue to sleep with my wife, whether I liked it or not. I looked away and saw Amy and Cody exchanging glances. I hated the way she looked at him, with admiration and affection. She was old enough to be his mother, yet around him, she acted like a teenage girl with a crush. Whatever feelings she once had for me were now completely overshadowed by her infatuation with this younger, attractive guy. His smooth words left me feeling deflated. Sure, I could have punched him, maybe even gotten a few hits in, but he was in great shape and would likely wipe the floor with me. That would have only made me feel more pathetic than I already did. Feeling like a complete fool, I pushed past him and stormed out the door. As I left, I heard Amy and Cody exchange a few whispered words. Amy quickly followed after me. "Cliff, wait up, honey," she called, her heels clicking on the floor behind me. I rushed to my car, desperate to get away from her. The whole conversation had left me feeling weak and humiliated. It was clear how much Amy cared for him. There was no way I could compete with a charming young guy like Cody. I hated him for seducing my gullible wife, but I was even angrier with her. Amy was quiet on the drive home. She said a few kind things, but for the most part, she just stared out the window, probably thinking about the scene that had just unfolded. I wasn't sure what she thought of Cody, now likely even more impressed by him. I knew I had taken a huge hit in her eyes. I had come across as weak, lost, and indecisive, while Cody confidently spewed lies about his so-called respect for me and admiration for Amy. What a joke. When we got home, I dragged myself upstairs, feeling much older than 47. Amy could see how down I was and tried to cheer me up, but it was pointless. She even offered to give me a back rub, and maybe more to help me sleep. I had no interest in her touch. She gave me a sad smile as she changed into her nightgown and lay beside me in bed. The next night, I moved my clothes into the guest room. Amy was visibly upset. She argued with me, saying, "You're my husband, and you belong by my side." She even offered me anything I wanted sexually if I stayed with her. I ignored her, and soon I was sleeping in the small guest bed. Amy went to bed that night in tears. The rest of the week passed in a blur. We went through the motions, waking up, going to work, having dinner, and going to bed separately. We didn't talk about the affair, and neither of us made plans for the weekend. Friday and Saturday nights were spent sitting in silence in front of the TV, followed by sleeping in different rooms. I had no idea if she was still seeing Cody. She didn't mention it, but I suspected she was. Even if I came home on time, she had plenty of opportunities to meet him after school. He didn't live far from the school, so it was easy for them to spend time together. Amy did her best to hide the affair, but I wasn't stupid. After seeing the way she looked at him in the classroom, I was sure Cody was getting more out of her than I ever did. Amy knew I was feeling down. She stayed friendly, often asking if I needed help with anything. In the evenings, she'd sometimes wear revealing outfits and give me suggestive looks, hoping I'd forgive her and rekindle our relationship. We kept our conversations light, but the tension between us was always there. A few days after our confrontation, I came home feeling drained. Amy's car was in the driveway, but there was another one I didn't recognize. Inside, I found Amy and a woman lounging on the back deck in swimsuits, sipping wine. Amy got up to greet me. "Hey, Cliff," she said cheerfully. She tried to kiss me, but I turned my cheek, something she'd come to expect by now. "Tough day?" she asked sweetly. "Not really," I replied, not wanting to talk. "Come outside and meet my friend, Susan," she said, and I reluctantly agreed. Amy introduced us. Susan was short, with blonde hair and a curvy figure. She seemed friendly enough. We all chatted for a while, then ordered takeout and ate in the kitchen. The women drank wine, getting gigglier as the night went on. When I said I was heading to bed, Susan teased already. "It's not even 11. Amy laughed. "He gets tired early these days," she joked. They both laughed, but I found it irritating. That night, I had a vivid dream, but when I woke up, I was shocked to find that the sensation hadn't stopped. I looked down to see Susan performing oral sex on me. I shot up in bed, pushing her away. Amy was lying beside me, smiling. "What the hell is going on?" I yelled. "We just wanted to make you feel good," Amy said softly. Susan added, "Come back and let me finish. You'll enjoy it." "Please, Cliff," Amy whispered. "I want you to be happy." "Screw you," I shouted, furious. They had taken advantage of me while I was asleep. I stormed out of the room and into the kitchen, splashing water on my face. When I turned around, they were both standing in the doorway, now in robes. What were you thinking? I demanded. Amy spoke first. We just wanted to help you. Yes, Susan added. Amy told me about your situation and I thought I could help. I don't need any help, I shouted. Everything was fine until Amy started cheating on me. She said nothing would change, but everything has. I'm sick of it. Susan responded quietly. I know, and I don't think she should have done that, but it was her decision. Yeah, and look where that's gotten us, I snapped. How do you think I feel, knowing my wife isn't satisfied with me, that she needs some younger guy to make her happy? Amy snapped, fine enough. I understand we made a mistake. No need to insult us, so now I'm the crazy one, I fired back. I'm out of here. I briefly thought about getting a hotel room, but decided against it. I wasn't going to let Amy push me out of my own home. Instead, I locked myself in the guest room and moved a dresser in front of the door. If they tried sneaking in again, I'd be prepared. The next day, I reached my limit. At lunch, I went to my lawyer and told him to move forward with the divorce, explaining how my wife and her friend had tried to ambush me in my sleep. He suggested we file a restraining order to get her out of the house and keep her away from me. I agreed. 2 days later, Amy was served at school during her lunch break. The process server walked right into the teacher's lounge and handed her the papers in front of her colleagues. After that, he served Cody for alienation of affection. Then he went to the principal's office and served the principal for allowing Amy and Cody's affair to happen during school hours on school property. Although we didn't have solid proof for that last charge, we intended to gather witnesses from the exercise class and hoped Amy had left some details out. I was sure some of the teachers had suspected the affair. Time would tell. Either way, it was clear they were cheating, and I was the one dealing with the consequences. I got a call at work shortly after lunch. Damn you, Cliff, Amy yelled. You idiot. I told you what would happen if we got divorced. It can't be worse than living with a cheater and a liar, I replied. I'm done with you, and you'll lose a boyfriend. You can both go to hell. I get why you're angry with me, she said. You've made that clear plenty of times, but did you have to drag Cody into this? He's a decent guy, and this could hurt his career. Too bad, I said. He should have thought of that before having an affair with a co-worker. He's just as much of a scumbag as you are, and he deserves whatever's coming his way. And don't even think about bringing your friends over here anymore. You're not welcome. The restraining order makes that clear. I've changed the locks. No more ambushing me with your girlfriends. You're crazy, she screamed. It wasn't like that at all. Most men would have loved to have 2 women in bed with them, but not you. I guess 2 eager women are too much for a coward like you. Susan was right. You're messed up. Speaking of Susan, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Is she married? Because I'd love to let her husband know who he's really married to. Screw you, she spat. Not anymore, I replied, laughing. By the way, your clothes are on the driveway. You might want to grab them before it rains. If you need anything else, talk to my lawyer. You better not, she began. But I hung up. That night, Amy came to get her clothes. I watched through the window as she arrived with her friend Heidi. She cursed and flipped me off, but I just laughed. With her gone, I felt a huge sense of relief. Her cheating was no longer my problem. The kids called me a few times. Martha was furious with me. She knew about her mother's affair and didn't approve, but asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her no. Her mother wasn't worth it. Robbie, on the other hand, was more understanding. He knew his mom had messed up and didn't blame me for kicking her out, which I appreciated. I assured them both that I still loved them and would always be there for them. Thankfully, we still had a good relationship. The lawsuit against the school board didn't go anywhere. Apparently, Amy had been truthful. She never had sex on school grounds. She and Cody met at his apartment or elsewhere, but never at the school. We couldn't find anyone who even knew about the affair, so they had kept it well hidden. However, the lack of evidence didn't save Cody's job. He was let go with a reprimand and soon moved away to escape the gossip. Amy was also fired. She was bitter, blaming me during a few angry phone calls, saying her work problems were all my fault. She applied to another school, but they found out about the affair and wouldn't hire her. Later, Martha told me Amy was working as a receptionist at a real estate office in a nearby town. The divorce took a while to finalize. We had to sell the house, since neither of us could afford it alone. I might have been able to, but it was too big for just me. Amy only took a few things when she moved out. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment near work and put most of the furniture in storage. You might wonder why I waited so long to divorce her. Well, during those months of living together, I quietly drained our joint accounts. Amy never noticed, too distracted by her affair. After the divorce, I didn't date much. I was cautious around women, and with the kids' school expenses and Amy's alimony, money was tight. I hadn't hidden much from Amy's lawyer, but after the split, I lived frugally, and my finances gradually improved. I focused on work and am now close to a promotion. After everything with my wife, I'm hesitant about long-term relationships. I wasn't rushing to start dating again. I've met a few nice women through concerned friends, and I'm not sure where things will go. But I enjoy meeting new people and hope to find companionship with someone who's right for me. One Friday night, I was out with an attractive co-worker named Stacy. She's in her late 30s, divorced for a few years, sweet, fun, and good-looking. It was our third date, and we were having dinner at a nice restaurant across town. While enjoying coffee and dessert, I noticed an older woman at a nearby table. She was painfully thin, with short blonde hair, dining with an elderly man who looked to be in his 70s, with just a bit of grey hair left. At first, I didn't recognize her, but after a second look, I realized it was my ex-wife, Amy. I mentioned this to Stacy, who glanced over and seemed surprised. "That's your ex-wife?" she asked, amused. "She looks more like your mom than your wife." I explained that she was only a few years older than me, 4 to be exact, and that she must have had a rough time after we split. I couldn't help but worry about how thin she had become. "Wow," Stacy laughed. "She looks old enough to be your mom, and the guy she's with looks like her dad." "I can't believe she was your wife." I acted as though it didn't bother me, but inside, I was genuinely concerned. Amy was wearing a sleeveless dress, and her arms were just skin clinging to bone. The lines on her face were much deeper than I remembered. Though I didn't tell Stacy, I was worried about Amy's health. I hoped she was taking care of herself. We didn't discuss her any further, and we finished our meal, getting ready to leave. Stacy went to the restroom, and I waited near the entrance when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Hello?" Cliff said, a voice I recognized all too well. "Hi, Amy," I responded. I turned to see her, and it was like looking at a stranger. She had aged so much. I wanted to say something nice, like how she looked well, but I couldn't bring myself to lie. Instead, I simply said, "It's nice to see you. How are you?" "Oh, not too bad," she answered, though her once bright blue eyes had lost their shine. Her face had thinned considerably, with a pale hue that worried me. "I talk to Martha and Robbie now and then," I added, trying to break the silence. "They're doing well in school. I'm glad to hear that," she replied softly. "Yes, Martha visits sometimes, but Robbie, not as often," I continued. We stood there, staring at each other, not sure what else to say. "Well, Amy, I don't want to keep you from your date," I said, trying to move things along. "He's not my date." "Not really," she said vaguely, avoiding my gaze. "Oh, are you still with Cody?" I asked, attempting to sound casual. Her dull blue eyes flickered with a shadow, and she looked down before answering in a rough voice. "No, Cody and I broke up a few months after the divorce. I haven't seen him since." She lifted her eyes to meet mine and added softly, "But that's okay. I don't want to see him anymore." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, unsure of what else to say. "Yeah," she whispered, and an uncomfortable silence settled between us. I was about to end the conversation before Stacy returned when Amy spoke again. "Well, it was nice seeing you, Amy," I said, ready to leave. "Yes, it was," she agreed, holding my gaze. Then, unexpectedly, she grabbed my arm with her frail fingers, her grip surprisingly firm. "You know, Cliff, I'm really sorry about how things ended between us." "You were right about everything," she said, her voice full of regret. I asked, taken aback. "Yeah, Cody wasn't worth it." "I see that now," she admitted, her eyes welling up with tears. "Are you married?" she asked softly, glancing at Stacy. "She's really beautiful." "No, I'm not married. Once bitten, twice shy, you know," I joked, though Amy didn't laugh. She just looked at me with sad eyes. "Yeah, I get it. You were always the one for me." I knew it back then, but I was too foolish to appreciate it. I didn't know how to respond. "Well, I don't know what to say," I stammered, feeling more awkward by the second. "Listen, Cliff, if you ever want to talk," she said, slipping a small piece of paper into my hand. Her wrinkled face watched me closely for my reaction. I didn't refuse it, and for a moment, her eyes sparkled just like they used to when I loved her. "I'd really love to hear from you, Cliff. I know we can never be together again, and I know I ruined that, but I hope you're happy now. I know you weren't happy with me. Your date is beautiful. I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you." Without waiting for a response, Amy turned and slowly made her way back to her table. She whispered something to the older man she was with, who glanced at me with curiosity. Just then, Stacy came back from the restroom, smiling. "Ready to go, Cliff?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm ready," I said. We left the restaurant arm in arm, and as we passed the trash can near the door, I casually tossed the piece of paper Amy had given me into it. That was the last time I saw her. Later, I heard from the kids that she was living with an older man a few towns away, probably the same man from the restaurant. They said her health wasn't good. She had developed diabetes. Fortunately, the man had enough money to take care of her. As for Stacy and me, we never got married, but I'm still doing well, working as an accountant. I see my kids as often as I can, but I don't see their mother. I guess part of me still feels something for Amy, but after all she put me through, I could never live with her again, and I'm okay with that.